I'm thinking about some of the issues that we've had. So, for example, the Grenfell inquiry, the disaster and cladding on buildings. How do you think that this kind of nanotechnology might have prevented that in some way?
Well, I suppose everything's at a more microscopic level. So the very source of the outbreak of the fire could have been nano devices could have been surrounding that electrical outlet and detected a fire or overheating pre-fire and interjected by sending messages to those that need to know about these things that they need to do something about it. So I suppose one of the better things about the Internet of Things, the Internet of Nano Things in that form is that we can move much more to a preventative and predictive model, as opposed to waiting for something to emerge like a fire, hitting a fire sensor in a building. The fire's got to be reasonably well established before they kick off and set off a water response, if that's the sort of devices you've got. With these devices, you can detect dangerous emergence of all manner of things, including heating wiring systems. So you should get earlier warning and therefore be able to interdict the issue that's about to arise.
So how far do you think we need to go with these devices? I know it's a very difficult question, but you could be talking about thousands or even hundreds of thousands in a single building. And obviously that comes with some kind of cost, not only to embed these devices within buildings, etc., but also to create the infrastructure to be able to monitor it. You know, if we're monitoring everything everywhere, that's surely going to be a huge cost.
Well, I mean, the Internet of Things is used in the internet. I mean, so if the internet's available, signals are available, and bear in mind we're moving to gigabit, you know, relatively quickly, at least in the cities. So the bandwidth is probably not such a big issue. And these devices have a myriad number of ways of energizing themselves, and we can cover that in a moment if you like. But the cost of these things ultimately is incredibly low, especially price performance. You know, what they're telling us about the condition of situations. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. You know, in Singapore, they're using IoT type devices to tell you when a dustbin's full on the street, and they go and empty the dustbin. So we don't have to go around keep checking to see if the dustbin's full. So you maximize the efficiency of the world you're in, because you're looking not just its condition, but you're looking at its potential new condition and then doing something about it. So the economics are actually quite good. Like all things that are new, it probably costs you something to experiment and get moving with it. But ultimately, you know, you can there'll be cost saving and benefit saving at the same time.
Yeah, I can understand the Singapore dustbins and other examples where you're detecting, or you're setting a system up to be able to detect a certain condition which you can respond to. So do you think that's likely to be the way in which these technologies are going to be used, looking for exception situations or changes in the status quo, which alert people? So normally they're kind of, you might say, quiescent and not doing anything until they detect something they should do about it. Is that the way you think it's going to work?
Well, I suppose in many ways you could argue that we're moving from planned to reactive maintenance. You know, we at the moment we carry out maintenance of our environment on the basis that something might go wrong if we leave it long enough. And therefore we interdict that by replacing, repairing, monitoring when we think there might likely be a breakdown. But with devices such as these at micro level, you can have a machine that used to have 20 sensors on it, maybe having 20,000 sensors on it. And each one of those would know its position and its likelihood and its normal status, and set an alarm off, an alert when something unusual starts to happen. And then we can interdict what is likely to be the result of that event. So, you know, ultimately, we can be much more reactive. But as I said to you before, I mean, the real issue is to be predictive. So if we're moving towards, if we can see a gradual build-up of a failure of something, of course, if it's sudden, you can't do too much about it apart from know when it's happened. But if you can see a gradual failure of something, and there's sometimes evidence, then those things, you know, whether it's vibration or whether it's heat or whether it's some other form of signal, then we'll pick up that much earlier and be able to prevent the bigger loss. I mean, everything from, you know, the tappets on your car exploding, you know, if you, or your fan belt, or your your timing belt going, you know, right now you replace it every so often because it'll destroy your engine if it breaks. Well, you know, in future you'll know exactly what stage it's at and alarm you when it's about to become critical, not when it breaks. It's pointless. So I think we will have a much better view. But buildings, simple things like these devices can go on glass and be invisible, and therefore you can tell when a window needs cleaning and when a window doesn't. So the cleaners can do the job by the pane. It's when farmers can put down phosphates or nitrates on a field at a given volume, depending on the condition of the soil, at square meter sections, or maybe even in the future, massively smaller sections. I mean, human beings can't do that, but devices telling you the condition of the soil and its makeup and constitution can tell you how to augment it, and therefore reduce massively the amount of phosphates and nitrates you put on the soil, with huge impacts on the rivers and watercourses. So we can be a lot more accurate in what we do in life, and a lot more sparing of wasted resources, I suppose.